Good morning, everyone. It's Carrie here with Workplace Education Manitoba with our Tuesday tidbit of responsible behavior. I want to just bring a couple of things to your attention, remind you, I know some of you are familiar with us. Of course, we have our attendee chat. And if you want to just pop in there and just let us know how things are going or where you're joining from today, that's always fun to do to see where everybody's from around the province. And then the other thing, yay, thanks everyone, this is so great. At the top we have a little area for private questions. We have Rochelle working in the wings today, so she'll be able to help you out with any of that tech issues that you may come across. And then of course using our chat for a conversation essentially. And I don't know about you guys living in the land of Zoom and any meeting and GoToMeeting and all of the other meetings. It's kind of nice to be able to have that chat and be able to use that. So I hope that's something that everybody is enjoying as a way to connect through these webinars. So yes, responsible behavior. Now, Rochelle and I were excited to bring this summer series to you, and kind of our hidden agenda for August is for some of us that haven't actually been back into a workplace or we are out of work, is getting us ready to get back into the workplace, get back into the full swing of things. I have this belief that really the new year should start September 1st. I find that September is almost more renewing than January, but I guess we needed something to do in January. So with Workplace Education Manitoba, we're helping people to develop essential skills needed for work, learning, and life. And our vision is that all Manitobans have access to essential skills, knowledge, and training required to determine and pursue their goals related to learning, the workplace, and life. And for those of you unfamiliar with the 9 essential skills, or like me, I can rattle off 7 of them, and it's never the same 7, but here are all 9 of them. Oral communication, thinking, reading, continuous learning, document use, computer use, writing, working with others, and numeracy. And my truth about these is like, yeah, I'm pretty good at these. And then I start digging in and like, well, really though? And so my hope today is that and I'll go through some of the essential skills we're looking at with responsible behavior. But the one I'd like to pull to your attention is continuous learning, and that's what you're doing by being here. You're already focusing on that. We'd like to express our appreciation to the following for supporting the development of this continuous learning skills curriculum. That would be Employment and Social Development Canada and Manitoba Education and Training. And this project was jointly funded through Human Resources Skills Development Canada and Entrepreneurship Training and Trade. And of course, if you're looking for more information, you can visit I call it the mothership, wem.mb.ca. We also have our weminterlake.ca. And this on our website, you'll have a bit more information about the essential skills. And also we do offer in-house training, and we can customize that training with the essential skills to your team. And that's one of the things that I love to do, is to be able to hop around from different companies and industries and acknowledge how these essential skills really fit into the everyday work that we do. And yes, good point. Thank you, Rochelle. We have our newly released workshops coming out too, so that you can get a hold of those and hop in. We do have a few, not very many, in-person sessions that we will be trying out this fall, following some strict COVID regulations. So if you're still not ready to meet us face-to-face, and I get it, trust me, it might be scary to actually meet all of us face-to-face. But we still will be offering our online courses, our 1-hour workshops series, as well as our tidbits. And so either way, so big fat thank you. Dun, 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 dun. So we talk about being responsible. I don't know, guys. Like, I am chronologically an adult, but sometimes I wonder if I have a 12-year-old boy running this ship over here. When you think about being responsible, it's about making the right choices. Now, I would like to hope that we are making the right choices, and some of us take longer to make those choices. Some of us hop into making choices without really weighing all the pros and cons, but it really does mean identifying and accepting the consequences, good or bad, of our decisions. I remember teaching some children one time, and I asked them, what are consequences? And, oh, it's a timeout, it's having, not having a play date or things like that. And the truth is, consequences could be good. There are good consequences as well as bad consequences. So it was really fun opportunity to help these children recognize that when I make a good choice, I end up with good consequences. And it's the same thing with us adults as well. It's about considering how our actions affect the people around us. I like to think that making responsible choices and being responsible takes a healthy dose of emotional intelligence. In the workplace, you may hear people talk about being responsible for people or outcomes. I think the word accountability comes to mind there. Now, responsible behavior is made up of 5 essential elements. We have honesty, compassion and respect, fairness, accountability, and I think this courage should be in bold because oftentimes responsible behavior does take a lot of courage. So for our webinar today, I wanted to look at how we define responsible behavior, the importance of acting responsibly, how to demonstrate it, and considering those 5 components I just listed off: honesty, compassion, respect, fairness, accountability, and courage. So really it's 6, I know, but we pull compassion and respect into one. So I have some questions to consider, and feel free to voice your opinion in the chat. I would love it. What is responsible behavior? Why do I need to behave responsibly? And what are the rewards and consequences of behaving responsibly at work? So let's start with the first question, and maybe that's the one question we'll focus on for this moment, is what do you consider responsible behavior to be? I know for myself, and I'm going to give you guys a chance to respond. So just because I started yakking again, don't feel like you can't comment. Thank you. Respectful communication. The word integrity comes to mind for, yes, that's exactly. Do what you say you're going to do. Integrity. Following up. What else? I think if we were even just to take the few comments that are here, respectful communication and do what you say, I think that would be hitting it right out of the ballpark here. Now, why do we need to behave responsibly? To have respectful communication, to have integrity, to gain trust, right? Trust is huge. Some of you familiar with my preaching on trust and communication. I don't think a course goes by where we don't talk about how closely those two things are tied. When you have respectful communication, it's how we can build trust, but we can't build trust if we don't have that type of communication. Yes, professionalism, which we probably need an hour to discuss what professionalism means, right? It's so different for each one of us. Another word that comes to mind for me, perhaps as a civility trainer, is the word civility, right? What does it mean? It's about being civil, which, friends, can also mean a measure of restraint, right? And not letting everything hang out. And what are some of the rewards and consequences of behaving responsibly at work? What have you guys seen? Yep. Sarah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Definitely trust. We gain trust. We gain the respect of our coworkers. People know that they can count on us. That accountability, production, efficiency, the team is behind you. All around, I would say good times, right? Good times in the workplace because everybody's doing their best. And this isn't a session on necessarily on accountability, but a lot of bad stuff can happen when we don't have accountability. We don't accept personal accountability. Yes, exactly. And a good reputation. But I think sometimes if, if you're late on a delivery, on things like that, that's something that sometimes I struggle with. Not that this is my confessional situation here, but if that's one thing that I'm late with, I know that I've done the job well, But what am I sacrificing is my reputation and the trust. And so behaving responsibly is all of these things that you guys have said. Thank you. I mentioned that we would talk about some of the essential skills that we pull from when referring to responsible behavior. Continuous learning, we mentioned that right off the hop, but of course, thinking skills, and like some of you have said here, oral communication. So, how we use these is in self reflection, our decision making with our thinking skills, listening, asking questions through oral communication, critical thinking, seeking to understand. Don't you guys love that phrase? Seek first to understand, and then, of course, the use of memory. I'm just going to pound through some of these. That was the same question I had asked earlier, but some of you have pulled this out too. Is being responsible means a lot more than just doing what others tell you to do. It means taking a stand for what you believe in, and I think that's where coming back to this idea of civility pops in. Is being strong and with our values and aligning with our values. Now, some of us maybe we don't know what our values are. We haven't actually taken the time to think about it. And if you're in that category, I invite you today, action today, to think about what your values are. Make a list, even just a quick little scratch it out kind of list about what your values are. And for some of us, like I said, we don't know what they are. We haven't considered it. Look at the values of your organization. I know I've said this in the past, but it's a really great place to start. I think with our values in workplace education is helping people. Well, I align with that. I love to help people. I like to fix situations, which isn't always great, but we do our best, right? So again, my point is just take a stand for what you believe in and align with your values. It means doing the right thing, even when the right thing is hard or unpopular. Does anybody have an example of this, where doing the right thing was hard or unpopular? And you'll remember that we said that responsible behavior often takes courage. If anybody thinks of an example, please feel free to pop it into the chat. Because yes, absolutely. That doing the right thing, it takes courage, it takes that accountability. And even going back to Evan, what your last comment here, it does give you a good reputation. Respecting other people, yourself enough to be honest, fair, compassionate, and courageous. And there are a lot of things right now. I'm not going to launch into this. I would love to, though. Be better face to face with the COVID regulations. I haven't always been great with wearing a mask. And then the numbers started creeping up. Anybody else with me? Where it was like, we're good. We're in our bubble here. Everything's great. And I was in Thunder Bay, and we were down to one case, which is within our range. I had to go see my mommy. I hadn't seen her since December. And I'm like, awesome. We have one case. This is amazing. Manitoba, we've got this. And what are we at now? 200 and something? Absolutely. So some of those things like wearing a mask, it's responsible behavior. I don't want to do it. My kids don't want to do it, but we do it. And I love this example, Rochelle, like working in a restaurant, being the one who washed the floor instead of letting it go undone because no one would know. That's right. Picking up the garbage. Who was it? I don't remember where I was recently, but it was, the CEO was picking up the garbage because it's the responsible thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And so we have a phrase in our home, which is choose the right. And it's a good one, especially when we come across situations where we're like, it can be unclear. How about having a good system of personal ethics? Coming back to this ideas of values. So help us to make those responsible decisions and stick to them. Some of us would say that's part of having good manners. And again, I hearken to civility. What does it mean? Make those responsible decisions and stick to them because it's part of who you are. It's your own personal ethics. It doesn't mean that you'll be perfect or always know what to do. And I'm sure each one of us can Think of a time in your life, whether it's inside or outside of work, where you didn't always know what to do. But what it does mean is that you'll have less difficulty figuring it out when you're in challenging situations. So let's talk about the importance of acting professional and being responsible. So Rochelle, you brought up this idea of washing the floor, which is so true. What are some actions that show being responsible? What do you guys see in your workplaces? How is that demonstrated? Crystal, good point, right? This is civil behavior, showing up for work, being on time, or in the case of Rochelle's mom, being early, what I would call it being early, she would call it being on time. Yes, active listening, respectful communication, meeting deadlines, sharing info that needs to be shared. Thank you. Oh, why do we have the gatekeepers? It's important for us to share the info. Did you notice that's a hot button for me? Being professional is an important part of ingraining yourself into any corporate or work environment. Guys, I wish I had a better memory. I think it was Skip the Dishes. They were talking about, was a company anyway similar to them, talking about when they hire people. So when in part of their onboarding process, they ask the question to the person they're interviewing, what will you do to be part of our team? Okay, and don't you find that we have that kind of flipped sometimes, that when we have a new person, we circle around and we invite them in, and we do all that we can to help them feel special and important and included. And they went and flipped that question and said, what are you going to do to be a part of our team? And I think that that's on each one of us. That's our own personal accountability. I know for myself, when I first moved to Manitoba, I was taking a class and I thought, wow, these people are really cliquey. Nobody's talking to me. And on my drive home, I lived in Portage at the time. I thought, wow, why do I even go here? There's nobody talks to me. This is ridiculous. And I'd have this conversation with myself every week until finally I listened to the other side of my brain that said, it's you. You're not giving people a chance. And so when I see something like this, being professional, having that responsible behavior, what am I doing to contribute to my work environment? So we mentioned this question earlier, how do you define professional? And I think, again, it's this respectful communication. It's all of these things that you guys have listed, showing up, being on time. Now, according to the dictionary, professional is defined as characterized by or conforming to the technical or ethical standards of one's profession. So I think of different professions where we expect, and I have air quotes here, we expect professional behavior. Have any of you seen the images of, you know, a surgeon in their surgical gear and whatever, and then the same person is covered in tattoos and piercings, and we're like, well, that's not professional. But we have some sort of made up standard in our mind as to what that means. And I think thankfully that's evolving and changing, and that's an important part of any life, is to accept those changes or to recognize them. We may not accept them, but to recognize that we're constantly in change. And so that's where I say this question of what is professional, it's interesting. So we use it in a general sense. I don't know that we have a specified definition for our class today, but I think most of us have an idea of what professional means. It's when we're engaged in that business environment, whether it's for a company or our own business, it's supporting our reputation, like we said earlier. So people who are professional are unfailingly polite, courteous, well-spoken, and no matter what the situation, they're not freaking out, they're not spinning their head around because something went wrong, right? They keep their cool, even when you're dealing with a situation rationally and calmly. We're able to maintain that composure and body language, right? Yes, I love that phrase too. We keeping inappropriate behaviors out of the workplace will boost employee morale and increase productivity. Now, I think back to my first job at A&W on the highway in White River, Ontario, as a teenager. And let me tell you, there were a lot of inappropriate behaviors. And as a new person to the working world, I didn't realize that. There was something that was like, should that guy really be hitting me with that wet towel on my butt? I'm thinking not. And so we'll get into more of that in just a moment. But yeah, keeping those inappropriate behaviors out of the workplace, and especially as leaders, we need to have our eyes, ears, and hearts open to recognizing this. Number one, I have a few of them here for you guys. And I'm sure that each one of us on this call today know these things, but I feel it's important to review them. So know that jokes about someone's gender, race, cultural background, religion, or other personal characteristics are very inappropriate. I would venture to say that most of us have been on the receiving end of one of these types of things. I know I certainly have been. And there are times where I can just laugh it off and go, ha, ha, ha. But really it is damaging, because what is it doing? It's putting a wedge in, and it's breaking trust. If it is happening to you and you're on the receiving end, respectfully asking the person to stop. Okay, and if the behavior doesn't stop, then you should bring it to your boss's attention. If you are on the giving end of these, know that it is wrong. That's it, right? It's fairly simple. Okay, number two, remember that touching someone else's body or making comments that are sexual in any way are always inappropriate behaviors. And sometimes we may just laugh it off, or in my case, I'm like, did that just actually happen? You know, I feel that, and I'm not going to get into the Me Too movement, but I feel that it's done a lot of really good things for empowering people and for helping others to recognize that something that they consider to be playful or casual or whatever is wrong. Okay. Now, this is very serious, which is why I put it in black with white letters so that it is very bold and very clear. If you are on the receiving end of uninvited touching or sexual comments, report them to your supervisor immediately. Okay? Very serious. Now, if it's not just for you, think of the other people that are also receiving this. Now, sometimes, if we are, victim is the word that's coming to mind, unfortunately. If we were on the receiving end of this, and perhaps it is victim, there's a good chance that you're not the only one. And if not for yourself, then for other people. And sometimes it's easier, if we are a victim of this type of behavior, to think of others and not necessarily think of ourselves, especially if this is something that has gone on. So awkward, yes, but important. So thank you for listening to that. Number three, understand that dating among colleagues is usually inappropriate. However, this often depends on the company. Anybody here watch The Office? Am I the only nut job here? There's a lot of dating on that show. It's kind of funny. And I don't know if anybody has been involved, and I'm not asking you to divulge your dating history here, but generally, I would say that this is inappropriate, and it really would depend on your company. In most cases, relationships between a manager and an employee are inappropriate because they can cause problems in the workplace. And so being able to recognize, am I becoming too familiar with my people? I was in a workplace recently where we almost had the opposite problem, where the manager, the supervisor, just did not want to have any connection with the people, which, other than hello, do your job. And so we have to find some sort of balance where we're familiar but not too familiar with our people, and recognize them as colleagues and give that respect and kindness that is deserved. Number four, consider possible instances of discrimination. Discrimination based on age, gender, disability, national origin, race, and religion is always inappropriate in the workplace. I would say we could even put a period after inappropriate. It is always inappropriate. Especially, and I know this isn't a class on civility, although that would be fun, especially if we consider it in the land of civility, right? So having these possible instances of discrimination. My hopes and dreams for this big girl talk that we're having right now is that our eyes and our ears will be open to it, and we'll be able to recognize even just phrases that we use. I know I've told some of you about my son when he came off the bus a few years ago and was very upset and angry and talked about how there were kids on the bus using the G word and the R word. It took me forever to figure out what he was talking about. Forever for me is a good minute. And he said, yeah, I don't like it when they say gay and retarded. And he was very upset to the point of like angry crying. And then he paused and he said, Mom, it's because they don't know people who are those things and we do. And so I was so proud of him in that moment and thankful that he came packaged that way, because I know with him, any type of discrimination is just a no-go. And I'm hopeful for this coming up generation that they have some of those blinders taken off that maybe some of us were raised with, or some of the beliefs that we hold. And so considering, again, those possible instances of discrimination, sometimes we don't even recognize that we're doing it. Isn't that terrible? Another example of this might be when a company only wants to hire men for manual labor jobs because they assume women can't do them because they are women. And I'm lucky enough to come from a long line of women who were empowered. And my grandmother, not my great grandmother, just regular grandmother, was born in 1896. And she and her, I believe there were 6 or 7 sisters, were all educated. And to me, like, I just get a feeling of pride with that. And mind you, back then, what were they educated in? Either they were a nurse or a teacher, but still, I think, wow. And the same thing, that it's very empowering for us to be able to say to our children, to our coworkers, to our colleagues, you can do anything, right? Number 5, realize that pushing religion in the workplace is inappropriate. So for example, if a Christian manager is trying to share his religion with a new employee to make them feel welcome, this could actually make the employee feel uncomfortable. And so we really need to be careful and mindful of the conversations that we have in the workplace to keep things professional. Like I said, there's a balance between being cold and unfeeling and having a relationship. So we say, without showing responsibility in the position you hold now, there's a good chance you won't be granted those additional responsibilities. Like we were saying earlier, that respectful communication. How are we building trust? Through our responsible behavior. And so being able to demonstrate those basic responsibilities, proud of you guys, it was listed right here, right? I think that that maybe, Crystal, you had read these slides ahead of time. Showing up for work on time and putting in expected hours, making appropriate choices, such as how you dress and how you interact with others. Some places have a dress code, some places will have, what do we call that? What's the word I'm looking for, guys? Unwritten rules, there we go, on dress codes and things like that. I was in a workplace and I was looking around and I went, everybody has black pants on. I wonder if this is an unwritten rule, because it wasn't in any of the wording that I had received. And so it's kind of funny. Being reliable with your boss, the people you work with, clients, they should be able to rely on you on a daily basis, right? Especially during peak or urgent periods, all hands on deck. And I think that those are some of those basic responsibilities. In addition, to show that you truly fulfill the responsibilities of your position, you should be able to meet those deadlines or even complete them prior to the deadline, meet or exceed each of your current job goals, and quantify and present your successful results. That's a great way too, when it's time for review. Well, check this out. You have it there. And remember that you're representing your employer. So your behavior influences the customer's impression of your business. So it's important that you behave like a polite professional. I know that I've been on the receiving end of some not so great behavior in the workplace. So being rude or inflexible or inappropriate can really take your customer to going elsewhere. And some of these things that we've discussed can lead to misunderstandings and even some legal ramifications. Rochelle brought this up too. Being responsible leads to office productivity. And we want to be mindful that when we think that we're sharing a joke or that we're, having a fun conversation with people, that's not always the case. We need to keep our behavior professional, and we don't always have to be the class clown. In conclusion, I just wanted to share this last little quote with you. Ethical and responsible behavior needs to become the cornerstone of corporate behavior. And that's so true. Those of you that are interested, again, here's our website, weminterlake.ca. I want to thank you for your contributions today on this, what I call a big girl conversation, especially some of those topics. We will be opening our West Center in the fall, and it's located across from the library with the Red River people, Red River College in Selkirk. And of course, we have other West Centers located throughout the province. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Let's go forth and be responsible. Have fun, everyone. Talk to you soon.